Imagine living in a world where simple gardening is treated as a capital crime. In the 16th century, across the vast, terrorized highlands of Mexico, possession of a specific handful of small black seeds was not just illegal, it was a guaranteed death sentence. If the Spanish soldiers found this crop growing in your field, they would not simply burn your farm to the ash and salt the earth. They would cut off your hands. You might assume I am talking about a dangerous narcotic or a poisonous weed, but I am not. I am talking about a food source so chemically perfect that modern scientists have labeled it the perfect protein. It contains more calcium than milk, more iron than spinach, and a far superior amino acid profile than the finest steak on your dinner table. Yet, for 500 years, there has been a systematic, ruthless effort to erase this plant from human memory. It started with an empire seeking total control, and it continues today with an industrial food system that values profit over your vitality. Why would they fear a vegetable? Because a population that can grow their own high-quality protein in a backyard patch of dirt is a population that cannot be controlled. They wanted you to forget this plant exists so you would rely on their fragile supply chains. But today, that silence ends. By the end of this video, you will understand why the food on your grocery shelf is designed to keep you weak, and how this single, forbidden plant changes everything. Walk into any modern supermarket and tell me what you see. You see aisles bursting with color, thousands of options, and seemingly endless variety. It looks like absolute abundance. It looks like safety. But this is a carefully constructed illusion, a facade designed to make you feel secure. If you strip away the colorful cardboard boxes, the plastic wrappers, and the flashy marketing, you are left with a terrifying reality. We are not eating diverse food anymore. We are eating industrial commodities. Our entire global food system, the bedrock of our modern civilization, is balancing precariously on just 3 weak legs: corn, wheat, and soy. That is it. Almost every processed item in your pantry, from the cereal to the pasta to the snack bars, is just a chemically rearranged version of these 3 crops. And here is the dark truth about them. They were not chosen because they are good for you. They were chosen because they are profitable. For decades, massive agricultural corporations have genetically bred these plants for one singular purpose: survival on a shelf, not survival of the human body. They breed them to withstand cross-country transport, to resist heavy pesticide baths, and to look perfect under fluorescent lights for weeks. Nutrition was never part of the equation. The result is a silent, creeping pandemic called hidden hunger. You can consume 3,000 calories a day and still be starving on a cellular level because your food is chemically empty. We are the most overfed and undernourished generation in history, but the nutritional void isn't even the biggest threat. The real danger is the fragility. Because we rely on these 3 massive monocultures, a single disruption, a geopolitical conflict, a megadrought, or a supply chain collapse can empty those shelves in 48 hours. We saw it happen recently. The illusion of abundance vanishes the moment the trucks stop moving. We have traded our independence for convenience, and now we are left vulnerable, holding a bag of empty calories while the price of survival skyrockets. We need a backup plan. We need the crop that they replaced. The solution to this fragility is not some futuristic lab-grown meat or a genetically modified supergrain patented by a chemical giant. The answer has been growing right under our feet, ignored and labeled as a nuisance for centuries. It is the very plant the conquistadors tried to extinguish. It is called Amaranth. And to call it a vegetable is almost an insult. Biologically speaking, Amaranth is a warrior. While your tomatoes wilt if you miss a day of watering, and modern corn crops collapse at the first sign of a heat wave, Amaranth barely notices. This is because it possesses a biological advantage known as C4 carbon fixation. Without getting too bogged down in the science, this essentially means its engine runs hotter and faster than almost any other food crop on Earth. It photosynthesizes with ruthless efficiency, thriving in scorching heat and blinding sunlight that would incinerate a wheat field. Where modern crops act like spoiled children, demanding precise irrigation schedules and specific soil pH, Amaranth is a survivor. You have probably seen it growing out of a crack in the scorching asphalt of a gas station parking lot, green and vibrant while the manicured landscaping nearby turns brown. That is the power we are talking about. One single seed, smaller than a grain of sand, can erupt from the earth and grow 8 feet tall in a matter of months. And the yield is frankly terrifying to the industrial status quo. A single stalk of corn gives you 2, maybe 3 ears if you are lucky. One single amaranth plant can produce up to 500,000 seeds. That is 500,000 units of life from a single mother plant. It is an exponential explosion of food that requires almost zero input from the farmer. It fights off weeds by simply outgrowing them. It laughs at drought. It is nature's ultimate insurance policy against famine, designed to keep you alive when the easy life disappears. So, if this plant is a biological miracle that grows like a weed and produces massive amounts of food for free, the question burns. Why isn't it the backbone of our global food supply? Why isn't it in every field in America today? To understand that, we must analyze the raw power hidden inside the seed. When we claim this plant was banned for being too nutritious, it sounds like hyperbole. It sounds like a conspiracy theory. But when you strip away the history and look at the biochemistry, it becomes a cold, hard fact. You see, the primary weakness of the plant kingdom is protein. While beans and nuts have protein, they are almost always incomplete. They are missing essential amino acids that the human body cannot make on its own. This is why you have to carefully combine rice and beans to stay healthy. If you tried to survive solely on modern wheat or corn, your body would eventually begin to shut down from malnutrition. You would essentially starve with a full stomach because the building blocks of life are missing. Amaranth completely breaks this rule. It is one of the few plants on Earth that is a complete protein. It contains all 9 essential amino acids, including lysine, which is virtually non-existent in our modern grain staples. Lysine is critical for tissue growth and calcium absorption, making amaranth's protein profile less comparable to wheat and more comparable to steak. But the dominance does not stop at protein. If you analyze the mineral content, the numbers are staggering. Amaranth leaves contain significantly more iron than spinach and more calcium than a glass of cow's milk. The seeds are packed with magnesium and fiber that put oats to shame. This is not just sustenance. It is high-octane rocket fuel for the human body. In a survival situation, this density matters more than anything else. You would need to eat pounds of industrial corn to get the same vital nutrients found in just a quarter cup of amaranth. It is the ultimate survival ration. And this brings us to the uncomfortable truth. If a population has access to a crop that provides the protein of beef, the calcium of milk, and the vitamins of vegetables all growing for free in the dirt, they do not need to buy those things. They become physically robust and economically independent. And in the eyes of an expanding empire, whether ancient or modern, independence is a threat that must be neutralized. This biological perfection is exactly what painted a target on its back, leading to one of the most brutal suppressions in history. To truly grasp the magnitude of this crime, we must travel back to 1519, to the heart of the Aztec Empire. When the Spanish Conquistadors, led by Hernán Cortés, arrived in the New World, they didn't just find gold. They found a civilization that was thriving. The Aztecs were muscular, healthy, and capable of incredible feats of endurance. The Spanish quickly realized that the engine driving this society was not just maize, it was amaranth. Known as Huatli, it was sacred. It made up 80% of their caloric intake. They revered it so deeply that during religious festivals, they would mix the toasted seeds with honey and, yes, sometimes human blood, to mold statues of their gods, which they would then eat in a communion ritual. The Spanish clergy were horrified, viewing this as a satanic mockery of the Catholic Eucharist. But the military commanders saw something more pragmatic. They saw a strategic vulnerability. They realized that as long as the Aztecs had their Huatli, they could not be fully conquered. They could flee into the mountains with a pouch of these seeds and survive indefinitely. The plant gave them the strength to fight back and the ability to live outside the Spanish supply lines. So, Cortés issued a brutal edict. He did not just outlaw the religious rituals. He declared war on the plant itself. Fields of amaranth were torched. Granaries holding tons of the seed were raided and burned to the ground. Farmers caught cultivating it faced severe punishment, including the amputation of hands or execution. It was a calculated, systematic botanicide, the murder of a species to subjugate a people. The message was clear. You will eat the corn and wheat we give you, or you will starve. They successfully shattered the Aztec food sovereignty, replacing a nutritional powerhouse with crops that were easier to tax and control. For nearly 500 years, Amaranth vanished from the cultural consciousness, surviving only in secret, hidden in the remote gardens of rebellious farmers who refused to let the old ways die. It was a secret kept for centuries, waiting for a time when the world would need it again. That time is now. You might think that in our modern, enlightened age, agricultural scientists would be scrambling to resurrect this lost superfood. After all, we are facing climate change, water shortages, and a global health crisis. Logic dictates that a drought-proof, nutrient-dense crop should be the holy grail. But look around. Amaranth is nowhere to be found in the endless fields of the Midwest. Why? Because the modern suppression of amaranth isn't driven by religious zealotry or military conquest anymore. It is driven by something far more powerful: profit. The very traits that make amaranth a miracle for the survivalist make it a nightmare for Big AG. First, consider the seed. Amaranth produces hundreds of thousands of seeds per plant. It is prolific. If a farmer plants amaranth once, they can save enough seed to replant their entire farm for the rest of their life and give free seeds to every neighbor for 10 miles. There is no need to return to the chemical company every spring to buy patented, sterile seeds. This breaks the subscription model of modern farming. It is open-source food, and you cannot monopolize open source. Second, amaranth is messy. It doesn't ripen all at once like genetically modified soybeans, which are designed to turn brown on the same day, so a massive combine harvester can sweep them up. Amaranth is wild. It requires care or specific harvesting techniques that don't fit the billion-dollar industrial infrastructure we've built. But there is a darker reason. The chemical giants have spent decades fighting a war against amaranth's wild cousin, Palmer amaranth, also known as pigweed. Because this plant family is so genetically robust, it has developed resistance to Roundup and other herbicides. It refuses to die. It stops their chemical sprays from working. So, rather than embracing the edible varieties, the industry has spent billions branding the entire species as a superweed, a public enemy that must be eradicated. They have convinced the world that this plant is a pest to be poisoned, rather than a food to be cherished. It is a brilliant psychological trick convincing a hungry population to poison their own dinner. Now that we have stripped away the lies, it is time to take action. You don't need a degree in agriculture to grow this. Remember, nature designed it to grow itself. First, you need to identify what you are looking for. There are many varieties, but for food production, you want Amaranthus cruentus or Amaranthus hypochondriacus. These are the grain-bearing giants. You will recognize them by their massive, vibrant flower heads that look like cascading velvet ropes in brilliant shades of red, gold, or purple. When it comes to planting, forget everything you know about delicate gardening. You don't need to dig deep holes or pamper seedlings indoors. Wait until the soil warms up in late spring. Amaranth loves the heat. Simply scatter the tiny seeds across the surface of loose dirt. That's it. Do not bury them deep. They need the kiss of sunlight to wake up. Give them a light watering to start and then walk away. Seriously, once they establish a root system, they will outpace almost any weed in your garden. They will shoot up, creating a canopy that shades out the competition. The beauty of amaranth is the dual harvest. All summer long, while the plant is growing, you can harvest the young leaves. They taste like a nuttier, earthier spinach. You can eat them raw in salads or sauté them with garlic. You are getting fresh greens while you wait for the main event. Then, as autumn approaches, those massive flower heads will start to dry out and turn brown. This is your grain harvest. To check if they are ready, simply rub the flower head between your hands. If thousands of tiny, cream-colored pearls rain down, it's time. Cut the heads, toss them in a pillowcase, and beat it against the floor. The seeds will separate effortlessly. Winnow away the chaff in the breeze, and you are left with the exact same superfood the Aztecs died to protect. It is the definition of lazy gardening, yielding maximum calories for minimum sweat. But before you run out and scatter seeds everywhere, there is one crucial warning you need to heed. Before you start your own seed rebellion, we need to address the illegal elephant in the room. While no one is going to chop off your hand for growing amaranth in 2024, the plant's aggressive nature has landed it on some modern watch lists. Because amaranth is so incredibly resilient and produces so many seeds, it has a tendency to escape. If you let it go wild, it won't just stay in your garden bed. It will jump the fence, take over the roadside, and potentially outcompete native plants in the local ecosystem. This has led some states and municipalities to classify certain wild varieties of amaranth as noxious weeds. In strict homeowners associations, HOAs, or specific agricultural zones, you might actually face fines or removal orders if you are growing what looks like a 6-foot-tall weed in your front yard. They don't see a food source. They see a property value threat. Furthermore, the industrial farming sector is terrified of pollen drift. If your edible amaranth crosses with the wild pigweed in a nearby soy field, it can create vigorous hybrids that are a nightmare for commercial farmers. While it is not a federal crime, it is a plant that demands responsibility. You are handling a biological powerhouse. The strategy here is containment. Harvest the seed heads before they shatter and scatter in the wind. Treat it with the respect you would give a controlled fire. It keeps you warm and alive, but if you turn your back on it, it can burn down the forest. Check your local noxious weed lists to see which specific varieties are restricted in your county. Be smart. We want to grow food, not trouble. But this aggressive growth is exactly why the prepper community values it. It is a plant that fights to survive just as hard as you do. And that reliability is why it is making a comeback in the most unexpected places. If you think this is all theory and no reality, look at what is happening quietly on the fringes of the world's collapsing food systems. In drought-stricken villages in India, where traditional rice paddies have withered into cracked clay, small farmers who reintroduced amaranth are now harvesting vibrant red fields that shrug off the brutal sun. They grind the seeds into flour, bake flatbreads, and report higher energy and fewer sick days than they ever had on subsidized wheat. In parts of sub-Saharan Africa, NGOs once pushed imported corn as the miracle answer to hunger. Failed. But when locals went back to their grandparents' knowledge and planted amaranth around their homes, kids stopped showing the swollen bellies of protein deficiency. One backyard patch now feeds entire extended families. Even the high-tech world has noticed. NASA has studied amaranth as a candidate crop for long-duration space missions because it recycles nutrients efficiently and provides both leafy greens and grain in a confined environment. Meanwhile, homesteaders across North America are rediscovering this weed by accident. They leave a volunteer amaranth plant in the corner of a chicken run, only to watch it explode into a towering, seed-laden tree that feeds their flock for free. They taste the leaves, research the history, and suddenly realize they've been yanking out a survival crop for years. These are not corporate trials or staged marketing campaigns. These are ordinary people in harsh conditions, quietly proving what empires already knew. When everything else fails, this plant does not. This brings us to you. We are living in uncertain times. Prices are rising, supply chains are straining, and the nutritional value of our food is plummeting. You can choose to ignore this. You can continue to rely entirely on a system that values profit over your health. Or you can make a small, radical choice. You can plant a seed. I am calling on you to join the seed rebellion. You don't need a farm. You don't even need a backyard. A large pot on a balcony is enough to grow a massive amaranth plant. Go online. Find a pack of heirloom amaranth seeds, red garnet, apopio, or golden giant. Buy them, trade them, share them with your neighbors. Guerrilla garden them in that empty patch of dirt down the street. But I want to know where you stand. Go down to the comments section right now and tell me. If the grocery stores lock their doors tomorrow, do you have a renewable source of protein growing on your property? Answer yes or no. Let's see how prepared this community really is. And if you know someone who thinks they are prepared because they have a basement full of canned beans, share this video with them. Cans run out. Seeds multiply. This knowledge was hidden for a reason. Don't let it be forgotten again. We have traveled from the burning fields of the Aztec Empire to the cracked asphalt of today's parking lots, and back again. We have uncovered a plant that was once a symbol of life, then a target of destruction, and now a beacon of hope for our own uncertain future. The story of Amaranth is not just a history lesson. It is a blueprint for survival. It shows that the most powerful food source is not the one that requires the most money or the most technology. It is the one that nature designed to thrive in the most difficult conditions, to produce more than you could ever eat, and to be free from the control of others. You are not just watching this video. You are part of a movement. By choosing to grow this one plant, you are reclaiming a piece of your independence. You are saying, I will not be dependent on a fragile system that can be broken by a single storm or a political decision. You are taking back your power. The conquistadors tried to bury this plant. They didn't know it was a seed. And the industrial giants tried to erase it. They forgot that seeds want to grow. So let them grow. In your garden, in your community, in the world. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning. You are the new gardener. You are the new survivor. And you have the key to a future where food is not just a product, but a source of strength. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Now go plant something. Go be free.